Hi everyone, I'm back with a new video, and today I am giving you an overview of two different inks, and also I'm comparing them a little bit. And these are two Diamine inks, namely Majestic Blue and Sargasso Sea. So these are two of my favorite blues. They're both blues that sheen very well on different kinds of papers, and I thought I would show you what they look like next to each other and compare some of the properties of these inks. And I must say I was kind of surprised, but I'll tell you why when I switch a shot, so let's go. Okay, here we are. I thought we'd do an overview of the inks on their own first and then do a comparison. And I'm starting with Sargasso Sea. Sargasso Sea is one of my favorite inks. Here's the bottle. It is half empty and I'm pretty sure you can't see it. But it's a well-loved ink for me. And it was a pain to fill the TWSBI because this jar is half empty. I had to put it on its side and like fill the pen. It was an adventure. Sargasso Sea is like a royal blue ink that sheens red, and I thought it was very sheeny, but these papers don't really show how sheeny it is when you write with it. The color is lovely. And it does shade some, but only I would say in drier nibs. So if you have a very wet nib like this TWSBI Eco Broad, it doesn't really shade. In the 1.1, it does kind of shade, and I am gonna try and show you sheen close up. So this paper is Rhodia paper, the 80 grams, and it does sheen on here, but not as much as I would like. And it's really hard to catch on camera, especially on this paper. So there is a light red sheen. And then I'm picking up the notebook. It is a notebook. This is Tomoe River, and as you can see on the drops, you can see it more. And this is the effect I would say you see in writing. So a swab is nice, but because it's spread out over a big area, you don't really see how much sheen there can be. I don't know if you can see the sheen on the writing, but there is definitely sheen. You can see the shading in the TWSBI 1.1 right there. And there's also shading on the Rhodia paper. So this is Tomoe River paper. This is a 68 GSM paper. So I would say if you have a drier nib, there's definitely some shading to be had, and there is some sheen to be had. I wrote down medium to high sheen, but it really depends on the nib. So if you have a really wet nib, you'll get a lot of sheen, especially on Tomoe River. But if you have a drier nib, like my fine is a very dry nib somehow, there will be more shading and less sheen. I did a smear test. As you can see, it dries way slower on Tomoe River. It doesn't really dry all that well. And then on Rhodia, it actually does dry fairly well. After 20 seconds, I would say it's mostly dry. So that's a good thing about this ink. Yeah, it's a really, really nice blue. It's one of my favorites. It's in my Alamy 2000 stainless steel right now, which is one of my favorite pens. Favorite ink, favorite pen. Let's go to, that was drippy, Majestic Blue. So Majestic Blue is also a very lovely blue ink, but it is not as royally blue as Sargasso. This is a very sheeny blue ink. It has a little shading. I would say it has less shading than Sargasso. Let me try and show you the sheen on these dots. You can see. So this is on the Rhodia, you can actually see the sheen. So I would say this is more sheeny than Sargasso. And as you can tell, I'm going into the comparison right away. It's impossible to not do that. This is Tomoe River, and there's sheen in the swab and sheen on the dots. Maybe we can catch some sheen on the writing, but it's very hard to, I think you can see some there. So if you do a comparison, I would say Sargasso is a medium sheener and Majestic Blue. So Majestic Blue is a high sheener. Color differences are there when you use different papers. So this is like a cream Tomoe River paper, and this is a white Rhodia. So there are a little bit of difference. But all in all, it's just a very lovely, lovely color. What I do need to mention is that Majestic Blue does not really dry. So it does dry after about 40 seconds. So I extended the test on the Tomoe River because I was wondering whether there would be a point at which it dries. And it does get drier around 40 seconds, but for people who like quick notes, quick draw, quick journaling, quick dry inks, Majestic Blue is just not for you. If you then look at Sargasso C next to Majestic Blue, you can see that Sargasso C on Tomoe still takes a long time to dry, but if you use Rhodia, it's actually not that bad. So if you're looking for an ink that is relatively quick dry, still saturated, and sheeny, I would go for Sargasso C. If you have a pen that needs a really wet ink, and you want a saturated ink with sheen, I would go for Majestic Blue. So Majestic Blue is very wet, and Sargasso is a more reasonable, I would say, level of wetness. Here they are next to each other, and I mean the difference is slightly in the color. The one is a little warmer. I would say Majestic Blue is a little warmer than Sargasso C, but they are very similar, except for, of course, the wetness properties. So I'd say Majestic sheens more, but it might also be that Majestic is just wetter and puts more ink on the paper when you write, and that's why it sheens more. But it's a very, very nice writer. Let's do a last shot of the inks together. So this is a Majestic Blue on two different papers. This is Majestic Blue and Sargasso C on Tomoe River. This is Sargasso C next to its other Sargasso component. Sargasso Majestic, different papers. And then a Majestic Blue and Sargasso C on Rhodia next to each other. I did not prepare a drip test, but I will be right back and I will use a cotton swab to mess up the ink, basically. Be right back. Okay, I am armed with a wet cotton swab. Just add a little more water, because if you drop a glass of water, it's not like it's going to be a little bit of water. Majestic Blue on Rhodia, not water resistant. I have had some experience with dropping water on Majestic C. My whole notebook was just gone. Like, literally gone. Yeah, and I would say Sargasso C is also not water resistant. It looks a little more resistant, but I don't think it actually is. Now, let's go on Tomoe River. And it just smears like crazy. Wipe it off. Yeah, it does seem a little more resistant than Majestic to me. But I have personal experience of losing notes due to Majestic Blue not being water resistant. So as you can see, I don't think they hold up to water. Sargasso C does not seem as bad as Majestic Blue, honestly. So yeah, if you want a little more water, I wouldn't say resistance, but like choose Sargasso C if you value your notes. But if you really value your notes, choose a completely different ink. Choose something that is actually water resistant, because these are not. You will lose your notes, especially with Majestic Blue. All right. I hope you found this interesting. If there are any questions, please let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys later. Bye bye.